listening to the Real FI Podcast, where we discuss time-tested tricks, techniques, and strategies for pursuing financial independence today so that we can enjoy a better tomorrow. Financial independence isn't about getting rich quick. It's about cultivating a foundation to grow financially, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Let's figure out how to kick the 9 to 5. Here are your hosts, Patrick and James.
How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the Real FI Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McGrath, with my co-host, James Rippion. How's it going today, James?
Good, man. I had a closing today for one of my clients, so I'm feeling those good, positive vibes, and I think we're going to carry it on into this interview, and let's see where it takes us.
So we've got a great guest today. His name's Flip. Go ahead, introduce yourself. How's it going today, sir?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Patrick and James, for having me. I'm grateful that you asked me to be on it, and it's a sunny day in Arizona, so I'm thrilled to be here with you guys.
Perfect.
Well, James, you know the drill. Let's kick this thing off.
So, Flip, why don't you get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and give us some background on you and kind of where you got started in life and bring us up till today. So just go back the years and give us a background.
Absolutely, James. So I grew up in the Midwest. Some of you guys may have heard of Gary, Indiana, so near Chicago. It was a working class steel mill community. So I was born in Gary, famed to Michael Jackson too, back in the day. So my grandparents came from, Europe, immigrants. My grandfather, who's named after me, 6th grade education, never got a chance to meet him because he had passed away, but my dad always spoke very highly. So he had, at the end of his life, about 400 employees in a structural steel business. And he had to figure out how, not even have an education or speaking the language. So he figured it out. My dad got in the business. What had happened, he had stepbrothers. My dad lost the ownership in the business when my grandfather had passed. And that's always been a hard thing in my dad, but he came to realize that he had to figure out how to make it on his own. So he was always working 5 jobs. I'm like, I'm not going to do that when my kids are born. So I was fortunate enough, guys, to get into real estate for back in the late 90s. And, I was doing it more for lifestyle than anything, not about the money, just about freedom of time. And I bought a couple courses, and that's kind of how I got into it. Into the space of real estate back then.
Gotcha. So tell us some of the courses that you were taking, like what did those look like back then?
Yeah. So I was cleaning out the garage the other day, and I actually found a DVD. His name was Carlton Sheets. So he was like the late night infomercial guy, no money down courses, that course. I went, another guy who was very big into stocks. I wasn't into stocks, but he transitioned from stocks to teaching real estate courses, and that was Wade Cook. So I bought his class. Actually went to a seminar in Washington to visit, and it was like a 3-day intensive, and bought all his courses. And I was working in corporate America at the time. I was just really wanting, I saw the writing on the wall young. I was 22, 24, and I'm like, man, I don't want to work for this corporation the next 30 years of my life. So had someone that was working at Automatic Data, that's ADP, a payroll service, Fortune 100 company, great sales training. Had a coworker who was always like working, but he was not always, like, he was doing something else, a side hustle, and that happened to be real estate. And he got me into the rental game. So we used to hike the mountain together, and we became friends, and he taught me how to buy a house. Like, I bought my first home, I bought another home, and I house hacked, and just loved it. And he wasn't flipping. And then I'm like, man, flipping is like, I want to figure out how to buy something and then fix it, make it look good, and sell it. So I ended up leaving corporate America and thought I could make money right off the bat, and didn't happen. So burned through the savings, ended up, finding, I wasn't going to go corporate. So I found a part-time job where it allowed me to get out of my home, be on the phone making sales, but also do what I love, which was start a real estate business. So that was a conscious choice. And it took a couple of years to really get it going back then. And, you know, it was definitely not easy, but like I wanted to do it so bad. I just, you know, kept at it.
So you've had a couple years between, you know, making that pivot in life and leaving ADP and getting into the real estate thing. But you mentioned you burned through your savings. Was that a decision that you think you might have done differently looking back? Or what would you tell your younger self now if you were in that same situation?
I mean, let's face it, James, like for me, like I was hearing it from parents, people that cared about me, loved ones, like you're making a big mistake, like, because that's their reference. They may have never like had that, or so I took a lot of, and again, if you're just starting, you have to listen to those around you, but like if you really want something, you have to stay on that track and get around people with that same mindset. So my parents didn't know about it, so they were fearful, like, how are you going to pay your bills? You got a young child at the time. And so man, I like I said, I cashed out my 401k. I got penalized. I don't know if I would have done it differently. I was just like, I would say this, being in corporate America, it helps having the W-2 to have the good credit to show pay, you know, that I was making, you know, solid income. So that it was a big plus of being with Automatic Data, the payroll service, and I could show financials and stuff. So that's something you guys got to think about when you're brand new. You know, but for me, I know I couldn't go backwards, so I had to figure out a way to hustle to make money. And I was selling peanuts and almonds and stuff because my buddy was a commodities broker, and I met him on a trip to a mission to Mexico, and he was extremely wealthy, and he mentored me, and like he wanted me to go to his office, but I'm like, no, can I work out of my home? And so it worked out. But like I said, you know, a couple years were tough, you know, because it wasn't as much as I was used to making at ADP.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to talk about the struggles, and there's typically a common theme where, you know, there's a big impact, but you believe and you just persevere and keep pushing through. And now that you look back at it, you know, and we're about to get into where, you know, where you're at today and all the different things that you're doing. And I love that you said, you know, you really wouldn't change it. It's those tough moments, it's pushing through that really get you to where you need to be, make you buckle down, make you believe that you can do it. And then once you do, you just start expanding into all different kinds of things. Isn't that right?
You do. And one thing I want to let the viewers know watching, Patrick, is nowadays there's so many mentorship programs. So you could go to your Instagram, your YouTube, and you could pay someone to mentor you with their course and so I did have that mentorship with those classes, but it gets even better now because you could go to local meetups, you could meet mentors in person there. It's so freely available, the mentorship programs. I would highly recommend, like, people get in a community, and network is giant. We didn't have that back in the early 2000s. It was the community not like it is now. Like, people ask me, is like, literally back then they're like, is that actually legal? Can you do that? And like, so there wasn't that many people flipping for, you know, profits at that time.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, let's take a step to the present now and kind of give everybody an idea of, you know, what it is that you're currently involved in, you know, with flipping, Airbnb, courses, all that kind of stuff. Like break it down and give us an idea of, you know, what your world looks like right now.
Yeah. So about 2.5 years ago, guys, so let's take it to about 4.5 years ago. So I was running, I've done a lot of flips renovations in my time. And, I thought I was getting freedom, but like, if I wasn't at the flip or having someone manage the flip, like you have to spend a lot of time on a renovation, like even after all these years. So I'd say about 4.5 years ago, like I wasn't taking care of myself. So I got extremely sick, like everything shut down. My parents managed the long-term rentals I had at that time, but like I was in the hospital out of work because I wasn't able to work for about, in the recovery, it took almost a year. So I'm like, man, I have some money aside, but I'm making money on my rentals, not that much, but like there's got to be some way I'm not able to work or this would ever happen again. How can I make passive income? And so, 2.5 years ago, I was with a realtor. His name is Sasha. He's a luxury realtor now in Central Arizona. And I taught him how to wholesale like 10 years ago. So we were having lunch. We were just catching up. He's like, yeah, I started, and I knew he had been on vacation rentals, VRBO. He got in early. So he got in about 10 years ago. He's from Quebec. He has them in Quebec, Canada, Palm Springs, California. So he was selling the doctor and the nurse. They were getting divorced or whatever. And they had 8 short-term rentals. And he's like, I'll take you over right after lunch. I'm like, cool. So we went to look at this 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse, and he's like, it's 185,000. I'm like, is that a wholesale deal? Because I'm always thinking wholesale. He's like, no, that's a retail, but I'm going to show you all the financials of this property the last 8 years. I'm like, okay. So he showed it to me December 2019. I'm like, this is crazy. They're making so much on this little 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,100 square feet, nothing fancy, but a Sky Harbor. And I'm going to buy the furniture, everything. I just switched out the couch. January of 2020, we end up closing on that deal. 2 weeks later, I had my first guest. I'm like, $220 a day for this property. I'm like, wow. And then all of a sudden, we had 6 of the other ones under escrow, and then pandemic hit. So I was like, man. So no one knew what was going to happen with the economy, what was going on. So those other 6 I was going to buy, we ended up canceling. They understood. So we crushed it though during the pandemic in this one property we had, because traveling nurses, like our state was a hotbed we have a very shortage of medical professionals. So they were getting high dollars to travel and pay out here. So we were booking like midterm, which midterm's like 28 days and over. So we had this place booked out like 3 months at a time, and the money was crazy. So I have other long-term rentals. So over time, I ended up converting every single one as the leases expired to short-term. And now we're on Airbnb number 10. I quit flipping, and I teach about how to get into these Airbnb short-term rentals, and I'm full-time. Yeah, full-time the last 2 years in the space.
So do you miss anything about the flipping business, or is this totally replaced it? Or do you think flipping something that you might come back to in the future?
Well, that's a great question, James. So I still renovate. So one of the ways I get I get 95% of my deals from realtors that I've, developed relationships over the years. So a lot of them, like, we're about to list this house flip, but it's a hoarder's house. Do you want to go take a look? So I get a lot of those calls from realtors in the community. And so I still do renovate. Like one of the properties, we put like 40K, 50K into it and turned it into a short-term rental. So we do renovate them, but now it's different because we end up collecting these properties, right? Because you do such a great hardworking job fixing it for someone else. Now I'm like, we'll just keep it for our legacy and our family. And you know, it's similar, but it's the sustainability too is what I love about the short-term business model.
Now I got a question regarding how you're able to acquire, you know, 10 of these Airbnb properties in 2 years when you're not selling any of the properties to get that capital back. So are you burring these properties? Are you refinancing them? Are you pulling out lines of credit?
So,
like, how's this all work?
yeah, there's always ways to get these things locked up. So a handful of those I had already had permanent financing on. So we went in as soon as the leases expired, we renovated them, we made them, you know, extremely nice and just updated them. And then other ones, what I do is I would highly suggest this, and I do to the students, the way you get into these properties. Well, there's a few different ways. So what we do is there's what's called arbitrage. So that's something we could talk about. And then we also will buy them with private money or hard money. We'll go ahead and renovate. So you have to have some renovation money. And then you're paying about 12% on your money. And then basically we fix them up. We have guests stay there for about 3 months. Then we stabilize the debt with 30-year long-term financing. So that's a couple different strategies. So again, you could use hard money to get into them, and then you stabilize it, refinance, put 30-year financing. You could use the arbitrage strategy, which is where you actually sublease through apartment complexes, through tired landlords, property managers. And then the third way is creative financing, seller carryback. All that is coming back into the marketplace. So we're going to be, you know, threefold as far as those things that we're going to be working with to scale our business up.
So of those three options that you kind of just listed, private hard money, seller financing, or arbitrage, do you have kind of a preference for the structure that, you know, you think works really well for you? Because I know there's going to be benefits with like the hard money situation, because you might get capital from that loan to do the renovation, you know, whereas with the seller financing, you might be able to lock up really good debt at a good interest rate. But you know, then there's advantages with the arbitrage too. So like,
yeah, I mean, financially, it just really depends, James, where you're at in life. Obviously, for me, owning properties was always a goal. So I love to have the ownership. But again, if you're just starting, you may want to go the arbitrage. You may want to go the creative finance way. And I can only put we can only put, and JBs is another good strategy, guys, to use with people that have capital. And maybe you just source the deal and you put the structure together. So that's another way you could get into the short-term rental business if you don't have a lot of capital when you're just starting. So those are some different ways that we work with students and getting their first short-term rental.
So in regards to buying the properties with hard money, stabilizing them with 3 months of the rental income from the Airbnb, and then getting that long-term financing, are these Dscr loans that you're using, or are these conventional fixed rate mortgages?
Okay. So can you explain what the Dscr means?
So yeah, that's the debt service coverage ratio loans.
Okay.
So, you know, typically they take a look at the income instead of going the traditional route to like a Chase or a Wells Fargo or a local or regional bank for a 30-year conventional mortgage where they pull your credit and dive into your income.
Yeah,
these are really property specific.
Right. No, that's a great question, because again, a lot of us may be self-employed, so it's a little harder to get loans at Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, and I'd rather not deal with those banks anyway. So basically what happened, Instagram, guys, if you don't have Instagram, get on Instagram. Like, a good buddy of mine, Pace Morby, who's out in Arizona. He does a lot of subject twos, and we had lunch about 2.5 years ago, right before COVID too. He's like, Flip, you know everyone. I'm like, yeah, cool. And he's like, but you don't know anyone. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, because on Instagram, Facebook Messenger, I can connect with people all over the country. So that's really the value behind social media, guys. And you got to change with the times, right? So that's where a majority of my students come from, networking through this hedge fund that hit me up on Instagram, and I ended up refinancing, I think 7 deals with him, and like stabilizing the debt. And back when I first started, I was getting like 3%, 3.5%, but they do check credit, they check your bank statements, but they don't really go into too much else, and they charge you a few points. But I'm like, to get a 30-year loan at 3.5% as an investor, that's gold. So the rates have gone up as times have changed recently.
So let's talk a little bit more about that hedge fund situation, because you said that, and I found that kind of interesting. So did you do some sort of portfolio deal with them to finance a couple properties, or is it like a one after the other?
It's just one at a time, and I'm able to do the burr strategy too a lot of times, where I'll pull out some capital, guys. And so it's so interesting though, because the fellow who hit me up, he oversees everything. I've never talked to him on the phone. It's all emails. He's very short, but like he gets the deal done, and like that's it's perfect. And so that's one option. And then I got another company out of San Francisco. They used to be called Lending Home, but they're very big around the country too. They just changed their name. So I've given them a few deals. But Warren's group out of Miami, because they get a lot of their money from your way up in Connecticut. So I every time I sign the documents, I see money's being Connecticut is very wealthy, so I see a lot of the money coming out of Connecticut to finance these loans here in Arizona.
Guys, I mean, this is huge. And I get inbox DM'd all the time of people asking if I need fix and flip loans, short-term loans, long-term loans. They can do loans that convert into 30-year loans afterwards. So you're so right. I mean, we're in the social media age, and you're putting yourself out there. People see your YouTube channel, see your Instagram, and start DMing you. And I actually set up a call with every person that DMs me about funding, because you never know what someone can offer.
I didn't know Warren would be that go-to guy. So like they're reaching out to you, just follow up and see what they got for sure.
Because I've done creative deals. Like I've done 20% seller carry back, on a deal, and a couple other seller financing quote unquote deals. And some banks can't do them. Some banks don't like to do them,
right?
But some people specialize in it. Some people will give you seller financing and then loan you the renovation money on top of it. Like real estate is so creative. And that's really what I love. So your story so far up to now is like, you've just kind of changed with what has worked, and just kind of going along the way.
You got to evolve. And again, 2005, like my business just scaled crazy because I met a mentor. That's why I'm so like really believe in like helping others and paying like being a mentor and coaching them up. But so that changed my projection of where I was at, because he had just vast knowledge the last 30 years as a real estate investor. He had acted like he owns a bunch of, he acted like the bank. So he was very savvy, very creative. And so he taught me a lot. So we partnered from 2005 till, the recession in 2009. So we made a lot, but we ended up losing most of it. It's just what it was at that time. Like there was nothing we could do. Even with him, he had been through 3 other recessions, and this was way different than a recession, obviously.
Right. So let's dig into that a little bit, because I know, when I talk to my peers, I have not been investing in real estate for a whole cycle yet. Like I started 2018, Patrick 2017, and we have not seen a whole cycle play out. So why don't you, take us back a little bit to 2005, the euphoria leading up to 2008, 9, and then
I mean,
kind of
so
what caused whatever happened there.
yeah, I mean, so the big picture financial crisis, like, so there wasn't systems in place. And if you guys haven't seen The Big Short, there's a lot of great movies about chronicling 2008, 2009, the whole financial collapse. So we were so when I met Jerry, we ended up getting a large, at the time for me it was a large bank loan. We went to a local bank, we got $1 million line of credit as our LLC. Obviously I would not have been able to get that without Jerry. So he was not only a mentor, we were just a great fit, because I was the guy in the street finding deals, networking. He was the guy behind the computer. So 2005 to like 2008, were we doing maybe 8 deals of, like, we were doing eight to 10 deals a month, like fix and flip, wholesale. Like we were keeping for a rental. We had almost 50 rentals in the portfolio. So the money was in, out, and then, it just, when you're doing 80,000 on a wholesale, 40,000, there's that tremendous demand. And then all of a sudden we have 5 homes listed. The mortgage company just went under. So what had happened though is they were teaser loans. So they were like, if anyone sneezed or breathed, they could literally buy a home for 150,000. They may have not had papers, because we deal with a lot of the Hispanic population in Arizona. So like all these companies were able to fund these loans, and I wasn't involved in that because I'm not the realtor on the transaction, but I was like, this is like, we're selling these people, and like, that wasn't my role, but like it had to eventually catch up, because these folks were given this loan, and then all of a sudden the first couple months you paid this much, $1,000, let's say. Now in 6 months they're paying $2,500 a month, and they didn't know what they were signing. So all these homes started getting foreclosed. And yeah, so just when the mortgage companies started going out of business, we knew we were in trouble, and the prices just kept going down and down, and it got bad. So we ended up trying to work with Washington Mutual and some other lenders that we had 30-year loans, and they weren't willing to work with the investors at that time. So if you were a homeowner, they would do loan mods and short sales and stuff like that, but that was far and few between. And I was doing actually because to go into foreclosure, you have to quit making your payments for a certain period of time. And I always make payments, but they advise don't make payments. This was a separate property I owned outside of Jerry and our LLC. But so basically I was working on a deal with MT Bank out of New York, and they don't know who's doing what. So I was filling out all the loan mod papers and everything. And then I get this letter in the mail, we foreclosed on your house. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was in the process. So they just stole the house, foreclosed. I wasn't the owner anymore, because you were told not to make the payments. You were working with the M&T, structuring a loan modification. Next day, they're like, your house is gone. So that was crushing. That I went through a divorce that next year, so everything just like imploded. And all I knew the last 10 years was real estate. So I'm like, thankfully I had Jerry as a mentor, because I couldn't have, it was just like, you go from making X amount every month to making, you're in zero or you're negative every month trying to keep up. So it was tough.
Well, that is a resounding story from majority of the investors that we talked to during that time of, people basically losing their shirts, but they got back on the horse and
You
here we
have
are
to.
now. So
Yeah.
let's
So
let's
let me
dive
tell
into the
you,
numbers a little bit.
let me tell you what happened though, Patrick, because I could have went to work at, the grocery store, whatever, to just make the bills, but I'm like, I just kept praying, and then all of a sudden there was two women from Canada who I had wholesaled some deals to, Carol and Shelley, and they're like, "Hey, we're teaching students in Canada how to invest in the United States." I'm like, "Brilliant!" So they knew me, they trusted me. They would teach them the book stuff in Canada from all the provinces, and then they'd send them to Arizona. So I was like, I wasn't owning property, but I was just like JV, and then I was acting as a consultant to find short sales. So that got me back into making a little money and kind of getting positive. And then about 3 years after that, I had enough money to do my own flips again. So, there's always a way, but again, I didn't want to go backwards and have to work for someone. So I had to create something that stimulated me, because I just think if you're doing a job just to do a job and you're not stimulated and you feel it in your stomach, you got to figure out what to do to make yourself happy.
And here we are today.
Exactly.
You have found, that business model that seems to stimulate you and get you going every day in real estate. Let's talk about what your current portfolio looks like and some of the numbers associated with that. So like, how many Airbnbs you got? Like, what does the income look like? Like, tell us that whole situation.
Yeah. I mean, I can just tell you this. You have to look at it so I'm only in Arizona right now because to me, it was important to really put the roots and get grounded, because I've seen guys scale too fast, guys. And, when tough times come, you can't. So I'm just scaling at this pace. We're on 10 right now. I do townhomes, condos, single family homes. And now I'm doing a luxury property that is a big project, but you have to look at it from an annual perspective, because people always come to me and they're like, "Oh, Flip, you're doing them in Arizona. Doesn't the summer suck?" Well, who wants to come in the summer in Arizona? But it slows down. We still get people, but like you can't. There's seasons, so look at it that season. Going in, it's going to be a little slower, but take the fact that we have a whole year to make this money. So the numbers are crazy, James. So even in the summer, so we have this property right down the road from me. It's a 3.2, 1,600 square feet. I bought it back in 2005. We lived in it for a few months. Then we bought the bigger house, turned that into a rental, and I've kept it all along. 2 years ago, I turned it in a short-term rental. So what we get over there, since it's a nice community and it's gated, we get folks that, "Oh, we just sold our primary residence and my new home's not ready yet. So can we stay in your property for 3 months? Oh, we had a flood. Can we stay there? We had a fire." So we get those people in the summer that need to stay a long time. I just got paid today. I got the $5,500 for that property. And that's at $180 a day. But guess what? After I got that 3-month booking, I raised, because they're leaving September and that's peak season starts. So now I charge $310 a day for that same exact property. And we have bookings for December and February at $310. So, I mean, you guys do the numbers, you could see that property was getting only $1,700 a month as a long term. Now I'm making, even in the summer, $5,500. It's a no-brainer. So just through education, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what short-term rental business is, and the parties and, destroying. It's just what people don't know. They don't know.
Yeah, I mean, those are fantastic numbers. And for somebody that's looking to become financially free, it sounds like with those 10 properties, you could be bringing in over $20,000 a month in positive net cash flow on a conservative rate.
And again, if you need 3,000 extra as a side hustle, that's why I say just get a 2-bed. Don't start crazy. Do the 2-bath model like I did. Get it close to home, and then next thing you'll see that it's real. What would $2,500 a month extra do for someone's income that's, kind of strapped on income or capped at their job or whatever? So I have some high aspirations and goals with the short term, and I have a YouTube channel that chronicles all that. So we could share that later, viewers. But yeah, I was in Hawaii for 3 weeks. I was in California for the whole month in June, and I was still making money, guys. Like, it was,
So let's, take this opportunity to dig into those goals a little bit. You've got these systems down in place. You've got your 10 units that you're rolling with right now. Where is Flip scaling this into the future, and what do you envision as your goals?
Yeah, I mean, I have personal goals, but really my passion is helping others learn the business, because again, if I would have, and I had a mentor, I had 2 mentors in the Airbnb business, but the thing is, I ran with it. Like, so I want to educate people so they have that self-confidence that, yeah, I could go out there and really get an Airbnb, and it's very visceral. So unless you actually physically step into it, it's, that's when you really learn the business. So we created the course to help people gain confidence, the community, and then go get their own Airbnbs. And, just with the community, there's so many different ways you could skin it. There's a lot of JVs going on. There's, a lot of people pushing to help each other. So I think that's crucial when you're starting any kind of new business, that you have people around you that are helping, and you're seeing their success, their struggles. And so that's my big passion, really. And for myself, I want to keep growing, the business. Just it's more about the ability to travel. And I had to figure out something where I still make money while I'm traveling, because the kids are older. Like, so now's a good time for me to go travel. And, I could go to other states and build the short terms there, and just we're looking at Florida and a few other states. So that's really how simple it is. It's not simple in the essence to get the first one. I think getting your first one's always hardest.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. Finding a passion to help others. I think a lot of the times when people hit a certain level of financial independence and they realize that they are making money without having to physically and mentally work at it each month, they really take a look internally and find that they want to help others do the same thing. So that's what you're doing now with the course and the mentorship that you have started. But while you're doing all that, do you have a long-term vision where you have 10 Airbnbs right now? Is it
So
40 or?
No, it's not about the numbers. So my goal is 100,000 passive every month. So as long as I net 100K a month, that is scaling the business. But it's it's achievable. It's but again, the systems you're in the business, but you're always evolving the business. So growing, learning different nuances of the business. So yeah, just getting to 100K would be the vision there.
And how many different businesses do you have right now?
I just have one. I just have the Airbnb company and the coaching. So those, parlay each other. But yeah, that's it. Like, I learned years ago to stay in your own lane, and because the more you get into real estate, guys, you're going to see a lot of different options, and it's okay to try things. But like my mentor always said too, is like, those people that are in their 80s now that he knows that are, they've always stayed in their own lane and kept moving in their own business. And those are the most successful people that he knows. And so I kind of took that, and like, I've had opportunities to bounce to other lanes like commercial, and like I did that, but like I felt wasn't in my lane, so I got back to the residential stuff.
I think that it's very important for people to understand that they can have the opportunity to experiment and try different things. And I personally have suffered from the shiny object syndrome. I've done wholesales.
That's what they call it. You're right. Yes.
Long-term, multifamily, just trying it all. But I think that's all part of the learning process.
It is, because you don't know what you're going to enjoy until you try different things, right? So once you find that sweet spot, just keep doing it is what I would say, because again, it's awesome to try things because you don't know what you don't know, but get something. Don't you got to commit to yourself. All right, I'm going to do this for at least a year at least, because do it for a full year, because if you're getting in and saying, oh, I want to make this much money in 3 months and you don't, you're going to end up quitting.
I totally agree. I mean, so I've really built my business up on the backs of small multifamily, and I've gotten to a point now where we've had a ton of people on that do Airbnb and Furnish Finder, and we're actually converting one of our empty units to try our hand at Airbnb in a building.
Yeah, to test it, see if hey, does this really fit who my values, who I am, and is it going to be complementary of what you're already doing?
Exactly. Is it complementary to what I'm already doing? How much of a headache is it going to be? With responding to messages and just the more tedious aspects than my long-term rentals that I have available. But what's nice is I have 2 leases that are coming up in the near future in a couple months. So if this goes really well, I already have the ability to scale it up. If it doesn't, I can convert it back to a long-term rental and, keep buying my large multi.
That was because we have some condos in blue collar neighborhoods, and that was the same thing. My daughter and my girlfriend asked me, was like, oh, this area, I wouldn't stay here forever. I'm like, okay, so what is the worst thing that can happen with this property? Right now we're getting $1,200 a month rent. I'm going to put in, some decor, spend some money there. All right, is that $5,000? Maybe paint it. Is that another $1,200-1,300? Okay, so I'm out of pocket, say $7,500. But if it fails, I'll just take that furniture and sell it again. But it didn't fail and it was successful. So you trying it, there's a very low risk to spending some money and see what you do with it.
And I think that's the important thing is the amount of investment to get into this, to furnish it, for the return you'll be getting on a monthly basis, very low. And you're going to pay it off within a matter of probably weeks. So that really does limit your risk exposure, especially if you're starting with just a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, something like that to get
yeah, and I love condos too, because again, I always had a fear of those. And then in 2010 or 11, I started buying condos. I'm like, this is super cool, because guess what? I don't have to do the exterior. I don't have to do the roof. A lot of these things are covered by the HOA, the homeowners association. So I would strongly start, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000 square feet. Your an outlay of money is not going to be that compared to a 3,000 square foot home.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's great. I think that's fantastic advice. I'm definitely taking that advice because that's what we're doing. We have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot apartment that we're going to try to do it in. So I think that's fantastic. I really want to get into, we have an idea on, what currently motivates you, but, give us your why. Why are you doing all of this? You've got all this stuff going on, you're listening to your family and they're thinking you're kind of crazy, but you got it. Why are you doing all this?
Again, it was more for me, Patrick, to be present. I knew I wanted kids. I knew I wanted to coach. I knew I wanted to go to their recital. I wanted to teach junior achievement. I wanted to do I wanted to be part of that like, it's not your dad's coming home at 6, 7, he's grumpy, he's drinking a beer, going to like, no, I wanted to, and the kids are teenagers now, and they were fortunate to have me every aspect. We always had their friends over, so it was more about that aspect of being present and not having to be down at the office or not being able to go on a summer vacation for longer than 2 weeks. Like that stuff was like, I was all about that.
That's fantastic. I mean, every person that we've ever asked, kind of goes onto the same thing, but a lot of them are, that's the reason why they're doing what they're doing now, to get there and to actually have someone who's been going through it for the last, 10 plus years and sticking steady with it, to have all those experiences. And now your kids be in their teens and you've built up a business to where you're at now with all of this experience. So as you have more time to yourself, you're focusing it on growing your business to the next level.
Exactly. So like that was the whole thing the last 10 years. Like I've been committed. So, and I've done well, but now where I have more time to really like dig deep in, grow something, like it's really gonna like be special. And like I'm blessed. I got opportunities to go out and speak and talk. I don't know, some of you guys may know people from Arizona, but Arizona has some amazing like investment people that teach courses, and like we're well known for whatever reason. I don't know why so many great people are from Arizona. So now I get to go be part of those communities, speak, and do some things in other states. And so it's kind of my time to go out and do more of that.
Well, isn't Robert Kiyosaki and the Rich Dad Poor Dad, Learning Academy and all that there in Phoenix? And,
yes, Grant Cardone, these guys are amazing. But then we got Pace Morby, we got Stephen Trang, we got Brent Daniels, TTP, and all those guys are close friends of mine, and like amazed at the mindset is more of about collaboration than competition out here. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but like it's not. It's a pretty cool investment community out here for a lot of folks.
That's awesome. So
I love that.
We've discussed a lot about like your business and what your goals are, and you want to get to that $100,000 monthly net income. Great goal to have. You want to build up your coaching business and your Airbnb business alongside each other. It's a great synergy there. What are some of the obstacles that you're experiencing or that you think you're going to experience on the path to building that business and getting to where you want to go?
You really like, so you're growing, but obviously you need money to grow, right? So that input output, so like that's always been, and then we're scaling, so we need more assistance, we need more people around us. So all that is obstacles. We got to make sure the right people are working with us that have the same core values. And so for me, I've been more of a solo entrepreneur, but now it's about building a real business with a lot of folks in the equation, because obviously you get a lot more done and you could scale it quicker when you have those people in place that, one person has the vision, the other person is the integrator. So you need partnerships like that. And it's a different place than being a solo entrepreneur. So that's what we're doing. And then of course everything's media now. So we have like my in-house guy, he's with me 24/7. We shoot a ton of YouTube, ton of educational whiteboards. Like we're getting the best of the best camera coming in now. So we're just slowly, getting better each day at what we're trying to achieve.
And it sounds like you're just having a lot of fun with it too.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So my mentor taught me that too. Like, he's like, you have to have fun, and those are the best two things: make money and have fun. So yeah, it's been a great joy to do this. And you have to, you're going to have problems, but you need to have someone in your life that can help you. Even mentors in different areas of your life is so important too. So you need to have those people. Like, I don't want to face that. How do I do that? Like, you call someone and get their advice too. So you got to ask for help, because I was never one like, oh, I could figure it out. But in the long run, that is a long way to get to where you want to go. So we do have our podcast. I'd love to have you guys on. It's called Cut the Curve. And basically what that means is, like, I interview people who are doing it and are experts, whether it's multifamily, and it's learning from mentors, moguls, and entrepreneurs. So it's most of my community is real estate, but we have other folks on there too.
That's fantastic. I mean, I really like how you said you need to have mentors through different stages of your life, as well as not being afraid to ask for help and form those partnerships that you need. I mean, that's one of the reasons that James and I, do this podcast together. We have this partnership that works for us, and we see business and the people that we talk to differently in each aspect. And I think that helps give our guests the best perspective for people.
You guys complement each other, it sounds, and that's so important. And one of the things I did early on is I got a person just like Flip. So you don't want someone just like you. And then when I met Jerry in 2005, we each had our own skill set that we brought to the relationship. And so, look for that, guys, in a partnership or, a JV, whatever, that you have a skill that maybe the other person doesn't, and that person could provide different perspective on this deal you may be looking at and things of that nature.
That's such a great piece of advice. I mean, if you had to give our listeners, before we get into this next segment, one piece of advice that, looking over, your last almost 20 years in real estate and building your business, what would that be?
Oh man, one piece. So, the biggest piece is they go hand in hand. There's three: mentorship, education, and then action, right? So you get people. I love engineers. I have a couple of engineers I work with, but like what is that? Paralysis.
Analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis. So again, they're so highly that brain, and they're so intelligent, but sometimes the action part lacks, because everything has to be tested before they could actually take action. And that, to me, I was never that smart. I just jump in and then I try to figure out the pieces. Like, so you got to understand your self-awareness and like, what is it going to take and why? Like, you asked me my why. I think if you have that burn why, you're going to wake up and do it. But if not, you may just be status quo.
Well, I agree with that 100%. I think a lot of the successful people I've come across in life, real estate and business generally, they're jumping out of the plane and they're building the parachute on the way down. That's not for everybody.
True. Yeah.
There's some benefits to it and some obvious drawbacks. But I think that's, great advice is don't get too bogged down in the details.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, hey, look at the hat. Decide,
take
commit,
action.
Take action. That's what we do. And I love that piece of advice. That was a little curveball. We've never really asked I guess that one, but we might have to add that to.
I love it.
To our list.
Yeah. So real quick, I wanted to ask James a question, because you said, are you a licensed realtor, James?
Yes. Yeah. So here in North Carolina, doing real estate, and then also do some part-time legal stuff. So I got 2 professional licensures that I try to maintain.
Man, I don't being a realtor. I don't know how you guys do it. Like, that would be so hard for me, because my personality skill set, like, I'm kind of impatient. So like, I know you deal with a lot of emotions as a realtor. Are you working mainly with families, investors, or both?
I'm personally doing a little bit of both. And I think that's something that I've had to work on because I'm not the most patient person. And I was talking about this with my mom the other day because we moved her into my house recently. And she was like, I just can't believe you're doing this because you're the most impatient person I know. And it's just not you to be interacting with people day to day like this. But
Right.
because kind of like your situation, I've grown to love it. I have a lot of fun doing it. I get to go out, see cool houses, meet with people, work with investors. Plus, today, for example, worked with an older gentleman. He's probably late 40s. He's retired from the military, civilian service now. He's buying his first home ever. And this was like a super meaningful, impactful thing for him. And we had a ton of headaches and hiccups along the way. And we had to go to closing 3 times today because we didn't have everything right from the lender. But it's satisfying and it's fun and see a lot of joy be spread, whether it's with the first time home buyer or an investor that's working towards retirement. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many sides to this.
that's exciting and that's rewarding. And so, reason I ask is I recently, well, so you guys know, realtors are my number one connection in Arizona. So getting to know realtors, when I started, like I had a plan. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I had to build a team, and so having a realtor who understood investments, like not one but multiple realtors, that's been in gold to me because like even this weekend, like I'm starting to go back out door knocking open houses because that's a great way to network with realtors. And I just tell them, hey, I do Airbnb, and like both of them were like, oh, is that a lot of parties? And so I had to educate them. But when I walked out, they're like, and then I also told them, with listings, if you bring it to me, you get to get both sides of the commission. So that's sometimes a good thing for a realtor to work with investors because say you list a property, James, I would say, hey, James, just, let me know, I'll buy it cash. And then when I go to resell it after I renovate it, you're going to get that side. Or no, when I buy it for, say you list it for someone else, I buy it from you, you bring it to me. So now you get buy and sell. And then when I was renovating, same thing. Kimberly would bring me a deal. I'd fix it up. She gets not only the buy sell, but she gets the sell again. So now she gets 3 commissions. So that's a great way for investors to network with realtors. And like I've never sent out postcards or any of that. I've always been like to realtors. They are the eyes and ears, and as long as they understand numbers, I'm like, this is great.
Absolutely.
Man, that is a great nugget that you just dropped right there that we almost missed. So I'm super excited. Before we get into the last segment, I want to give you an opportunity to just tell our listeners about your Airbnb course. I know you just launched it. So, give us the high level. What are we going to learn in this course, that you've developed?
Okay. So as so I've been doing this 23 years, and there's a reason why I switched to Airbnbs. And that simple reason is passive income, right? So we're not trading hours for dollars anymore. So I teach the Passive Income Accelerator course, A to Z, everything. First thing we talk about is mindset, because if you don't have the mindset, it's probably not for you, because there's tough days in this thing. So mindset's big. The community support is another big portion. We meet every week on a Zoom call. I'm there. And then we also have guest experts in their space. So I had a guy he's from Joshua Tree, California. He has these beautiful luxury places. So he talked a little bit. This morning we had a creative finance guy in the course. So that's included in the 9 modules. You get the group Zoom, access to community, and then I do one-on-one mentorship too, but that's a different portion. You have to be in the class, and then it's kind of like a apprenticeship program, if it's a good fit for both of us, because I want to make sure that they understand exactly. I want to make sure they want to work with me. I want to work with them. And then we just help them get the whole goal is to help them get their first Airbnb property. And we teach the different strategies. We teach about the furniture. We teach about the numbers. All this is in the modules that they could watch at their own pace.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'm sure with the experience that you've had with, having 10 Airbnbs right now, converting long-term rentals to short-term rentals, just the year's worth of experience.
And again, we've had tons of problems, but that's the whole reason for the course, where they could learn from my expertise, my issues, my problems, what I bought, I shouldn't have bought, or, these just the little things can make, just like in athletics, if you do a little different twist, little turn, little things could set you in a whole different direction.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, this is a perfect segue into the last section of the show that
Big Four.
James and I like to call the Big Four. So, all right, James, kick it off for us.
Perfect. So, Flip, I want you to think about something that you do in your life that kind of feels like a personal financial independence hack, something that just totally feels like a cheat code.
Okay. I didn't know we were getting in this game, but I'm all about games. Sweet. So a cheat code, guys, is financial cheat code. So what I do, just like you guys, I network, I talk to people, I listen actively, find out about what they're doing in their business. Again, they're the experts. So I have the podcast, I interview, Brent Daniels, talk to people. So I cheat by talking to people in the space that are the masters at what they do. And then I, again, apply it to like all the people I talk to. They have certain things that I may not do in my business that I learned. So I would just say, find out about what other people are doing and, apply that to your business model.
Perfect.
Bam. Love that answer. All right. The next one, we call this one resources. So are there any books, podcasts, or people that you feel our listeners should know about? We heard about your podcast. We know you've got a course. Is there anybody out there? Tell us about your podcast again, what the name is, and is there anybody out there or any books out there that our listeners need to go check out?
Sure. So my podcast is on YouTube right now. It's called The Airbnb Climb. It's three words, The Airbnb Climb. Just check it out. I do whiteboards on there, but I also do every interview I ever done with my guests on Cut the Curve. So if they would just want to listen to it, they could go to Spotify and type in Cut the Curve. And then also, of course, where you and I met, Instagram at @flippin_AZ. The books, I've been an avid nerd reader for years. So I was usually on the weekends, I'd be in Barnes & Noble in the self-development section. And so Think and Grow Rich is one of my favorite, most like that would be a top 3. The Richest Man in Babylon is an amazing book. And then if you haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's a very easy read. And those 3 would be like, start there. And like, I don't even read anymore though, guys. I just go to YouTube, type in the name of the book, and like I'll be doing something, I'll just listen all day. So just go to YouTube and you can get all those amazing books right there, and they just play while you're working.
Absolutely. There's no shortage of information and resources out there. And the book you named, those are absolute classics. I love them all. And our listeners should definitely go check you out on YouTube, Instagram, and on your podcast. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great nuggets there, especially if they're looking to, emulate kind of the business that you've started and have so successfully built. So we call this next section the future you. So I want you to think about 5 years into the future. Where's Flip at? What does his personal life look like? And what does Flip's business look like?
Yeah, I mean, I already know. So I'm very into like, so it's funny, I have journaled for years. So if for me, like if I need like, because you write your wins, your losses, your struggles, your victories. So I do Hour of Power on Sundays, and it usually turns in longer, but I've, for whatever reason, I've always written down goals and stuff like that. So, 5 years, man, so I'll have the 100K passive income. I'll be traveling to other countries. I'll have a lady by my side, helping others succeed in the short-term rental business. That's all I need. Yeah.
Love it. That's a great answer. I mean, I think you're going to get there too. So
thank you.
It's going to happen.
Exactly. Well, you already said it, but let's say it again one last time before we end this thing. Where is the best place for our listeners to get in touch with you?
Every day I'm on Instagram, thanks to Pace Morby out there. So it's at Flippin AZ. It's just FLIPPIN_AZ. And then the YouTube channel is called The Airbnb Climb. And that's where I put all my podcasts. I interview moguls, mentors, and entrepreneurs on Cut the Curve. And then also, if you're just driving, you could plug Spotify, and Cut the Curve is the name, and you could get all our podcasts and just listen to them.
And then what about the website for your course?
The website, so it's they could go to my Instagram, actually. That's the easiest way. And under my bio, yeah, you just click on there and register for the course. The way it's set up now, you could either pay monthly or like we do a super dope deal for people right now. So $397 for the whole year. So you basically get all the modules. You get 8 months free because it's like $97 a month subscription, and you could quit anytime, cancel anytime. But I mean, no one has, and since we started, but we just want to throw that in there, and would love to have you guys and anyone you knew check out the course.
I love it. I love it. Well, Flip, it has been an absolute pleasure to hear from someone with so much experience in the game, so much perseverance in the game. We appreciate you coming on the podcast, talking to our listeners, dropping some knowledge. So with that being said, if you like this episode, if you hated this episode, go to Apple, leave us a review, 5-star review, please. Google, hit subscribe. Spotify, hit subscribe. And YouTube, we have like 60 subscribers on YouTube. We need to bump those numbers up. So go hit that subscribe button, and we'll talk to you next time.
Love it. Thank you, guys.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Real FI podcast, where you learn from the investors that have lived the hard lessons for you. To connect with us during your pursuit of financial independence, be sure to join our community by following us on Instagram or emailing us at info@therealfi.com. If this content made you financially, mentally, physically, or spiritually richer, please make sure to leave us a positive review on your preferred content platform. Cheers to kicking the 9 to 5.